Welcome to the CDN Podcast exclusive interview. Today, we are fortunate to welcome Mark Salzberg, the chairman of Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, better known in the hobby as NGC. NGC is part of the Certified Collectibles Group, which is vast in the field of collectibles authentication. CCG is growing beyond their current scope of coins, currency, and comics, just to name a few, and into new areas like stamp hobby. And just last week, they made a major announcement, and that's one of the subjects we're going to touch on in detail today's call. So Mark is also a very good friend of mine for over 2 decades now, and we've enjoyed many meals and conversations together about the state of the hobby and the needs of authentication to build collector confidence. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today at the CDN Podcast.
My pleasure. Happy to talk to you about our newest developments and what I see coming down the pike for the future of all collectibles.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we can touch on today, so we'll try to stay focused, because I'm sure you and I could go on for hours and hours. But, for starters, let me just get into the beginning and ask you how you first got into coin collecting, and then, you went from coin collecting to dealing and ultimately decided to become a professional grader. And, that's a big decision, to become a grader over the trader of coins. So maybe you could just give me a little background on that.
I started collecting coins when I was 7 years old. A little girl walked up to me on the streets of Oyster Bay, Long Island, and handed me a 1903 penny for whatever reason. And then I brought it home. I showed my dad, and he got me a coin book. And from there, my mom started taking me to coin club meetings, garage sales. I met John Albanese at a garage sale, and he was working at a coin shop. And I was 10 years old or 11 years old. I met him at a garage sale, and my mom and him had a negotiation, and they got along great. And I think we bought a silver dollar after she told him it was too much money.
That's funny.
Then he hired me at the coin shop, and worked there for 2-3 years, and really started buying and selling really high end material for relative to what was capable of. So, silver dollars, commemoratives, buffalo nickels, nice quality. I worked on my parents had a chicken farm, an egg farm, and I would sell, I would plant corn in the summer and then sell it on the side of the road, and took that money and bought, a 3-cent nickel or in proof, or one season I bought a half-cent. My parents said I worked the whole summer for a half-cent and busted my chops. But it turned out that I was just obsessed with coins, and I loved it. And I was a pretty good athlete, but I decided to turn towards kind of trading coins full time. In high school, I was making more than my teachers buying and selling coins. And then went to Drexel University for 9 days.
9 days.
And then 9 days. And then decided, you know what, I've had enough of this. I really, really want to be a dealer. I love the transaction of beautiful things, and it just was in my blood. So I started buying and selling, and that was 1979, 1980. 1987, I found myself at Newport Beach, living there with my soon-to-be wife, Donna, and I worked at PC Jess for 6 months. Albanese was a founder, and he decided to open up NGC. And since we were from the Northeast in New Jersey and we were buddies, I joined him. And I joined NGC January 1st, 1988. And, we were small, very, very focused. And in 91, John basically, he decided to go back into trading of coins, and I took over from there. We were doing about 12,000 coins a month at that time. And in 98, I bought most of the partners out. And today we'd probably some days we do 10 to 15, 20,000 coins a day. So we've really grown. I've added paper money guarantee, numismatic conservation services, comic books. We're pretty much number one in all those areas worldwide. We have offices in Shanghai, Munich, London, Hong Kong, and we recently opened CAG, Collectibles Authentication Group. So that leverages our holders and our credibility and our know-how to encapsulate and authenticate estates. And our launch estate is probably the best one I'll ever run into, and that is the Neil Armstrong collection, the family collection. And that's probably why we're talking today.
Well, yeah. Hopefully, not the only reason we're talking today, because the CAG is a big subject for that I want to touch on. But I also, it's just amazing. And I was talking with a friend of mine recently and explaining to him how you couldn't start something like CAG, which puts together all the pieces of all these different authentication areas that you've worked on, like you said, whether it's documents or it's coins and it's all kinds of things, and then you have a family estate like the Armstrong family, and all those pieces need authentication, and they need maybe certain kinds of holders, and it takes a large operation that has years of experience like you've built, and it's impressive what you've done, and especially since the beginning and since you took over full time over at NGC. It's an impressive operation. Maybe one day we'd even get down there and can do some video at the operation to tie in with this interview. But it's amazing, and it's not easy to replicate. And I think what I guess what buyers are really looking for when I speak to people who are not in numismatics, and I try to explain to them how this works. I mean, it's all about collector confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about feeling comfortable, preservation. We also have all these wonderful tools, population reports, the registries. And one of the most important aspects of CAG is that if you look at the present model, and that is, let's say you sell an estate, the John Wayne estate through Heritage. It did extremely well. Everybody knows who John Wayne is, and it's a worldwide event. However, when you go to resell those artifacts, you have to refer back to the Heritage catalog. You have to have corroborating evidence that this was truly a John Wayne artifact from that auction. With CAG, now that it's holdered, and now that it's, if it's too large for a holder, we have technology that can fingerprint it. And basically, if you have a photograph that's John Wayne signed, it's authenticated, you'd have to almost resell it and almost pitch it again to the next buyer. But with CAG, once it's sealed and preserved, it changes the paradigm of how these things are sold in the future. And it makes people much more comfortable to jump in there and buy it, knowing that a third party impartially has looked at that item, reviewed it, authenticated it, made sure the provenance is correct. And then going forward, you never have a problem reselling it, essentially, or you remove a lot of the obstacles. So that is a natural, and we, like you so well articulated, we have been able to leverage all these different holders and new technology. So in the advent of blockchain, this is a perfect model going forward to not only do estates, but we hope to get into museums. Because when you think about museums, they have 99% of the material and artifacts sitting in the back. And their mandate is that they have to preserve these items. But every museum in the world has trouble with funding. So if you think about how we could potentially apply CAG to museums and give these museums the ability to not only coordinate selling these items and keeping them together with an artifact registry, which I created a few years ago. And the artifact registry is just an online registry that would keep essentially these museums collections together virtually, that could be looked at by scientists, researchers, the public, and the material then could be sold through telemarketers or auctions to the public and using CAG. And the funds could then be used for curating these collections. So you achieve a tremendous amount of very important things. One is a social issue. It's a social problem with these museums having the lack of funds. Secondly, the stuff is sitting there and it needs to be preserved, and that is a responsibility of these museums. And thirdly, the public, as we all know, being coin people, the public will collectors will look at these items. For example, take Confederate notes that the Smithsonian has hundreds of thousands of them. They don't need hundreds of thousands sitting in boxes, rotting in a vault somewhere.
Right.
But the public would pick it apart. They'd pick an item apart. They'd look at the varieties, the different signature combinations. They would look at the vignettes and all the different aspects, and they would pick it apart and unlock value there. So you're talking about a tremendous amount of potential of unlocking of value, funds, and solving social issues. So to me, it's really, really important. I know that's a long kind of thought process to get to a museum, but it really, if it's possible that it could very likely happen if one museum starts doing it, they all start feeling comfortable and they start doing it. The public would probably embrace it. Think about the provenance of these things too. You can't get it by the provenance, and the freshness of these would attract tremendous interest.
Yeah, I mean, the example you just used of the Smithsonian and the Confederate currency is the perfect example. I remember you telling me about that, I don't know, 5-10 years ago even. How do you help the Smithsonian unlock this value? The notes are deteriorating in their vaults. It's the last thing on their mind. But if somehow CAG can come along, help them release that value, they could even sell them in the museum gift shop for all we care, right? I mean, get them out there, and they're the real thing instead of walking around. Colonial Williamsburg is nearby here. And, people come up, would come over to the coin shop after going to Colonial Williamsburg and try to sell this continental currency. Of course, it's a cheap counterfeit. And why not sell the real thing? It's not that expensive, and that would add real value to the museum. So it's a fabulous idea. And as you alluded to, I think exactly to the conversation I had with my friend, it's all about those secondary and tertiary markets. I mean, any auction company will do fine in that first round when they sell the Armstrong collection because everything's together. It reminds me of, I think, when Elvis' estate sold at one time. I think they said that he saved every receipt, every lock of hair. But the problem is, if somebody offers you a lock of hair from Elvis, 30 years after the auction, how do you really know, right? And who wants to bother looking that up in the catalog and making sure it verifies whether if it's somehow preserved in a lucite container? And like you said, you go straight to a certain website, hit the barcode, and you're there. I think the markets, this, straight to eBay or who knows whatever these secondary and tertiary markets are going to be, it's going to add value to the first round.
Right.
So it's only going to be better for the consigners and everybody going on.
Right. The Armstrong collection, essentially fell into our laps. I played golf with the brothers, the sons, Mark and Rick in Scotland, and we got to talking, and we played the next year, and we got talking more, and they invited me to Cincinnati. They didn't know what they had. They knew that they had a tremendous amount of material, but they really didn't understand how to work it and what to do with it, and to do it in a way that would honor their father's legacy.
Sure.
And together, we put in, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in terms of business, most difficult, I should say. And we worked together for a year, and we had to maintain the focus. And the focus was they wanted to make sure that the material, these artifacts were preserved correctly and again, honor their father's legacy. They wanted to have a major component of a philanthropic component. They're giving a lot of the money away, and they're going to be funding astronaut programs, and they're really, really serious about that. And they also wanted to make sure that this was also kept together for future generations to review. So the gallery that we created online, Heritage's great auction catalogs, and so forth. So I conducted the proposals for various auction houses. They made proposals, and Heritage won. They came up with the best proposal. But the process and the blueprint had to be perfect, because we'll do this over and over and over. And what I've learned is that these estates are all unique, of course, and there's many aspects to it. There's a private sale. There's There's the negotiation with the auction house. There's the auction itself.
Sure.
There's another fantastic. There's artifacts within this that will be announced pretty soon. That there's going to be replicas made of, restrikes made of, that'll blow people's minds. So it's all these different aspects. So it's very, very exciting for me to be involved in this.
Sure.
I grade every day, but the fact that I can get involved in this and meet such exciting people, and the other overriding aspect of this that I had to keep in mind was that we're dealing with one of the most famous humans that ever walked the face of the earth. When they first showed me some of the artifacts, one of the things that they showed me, there's two that literally blew my mind. One, when I walked into their home in Cincinnati, they had some of the artifacts on the table, and they had boxes of letters, and apparently he was getting 10,000 letters a day, and they had a team of 4 women that were opening the letters every day. Think about that. He was getting 10,000 letters a day when he got back from the moon.
Unbelievable.
And so they handed me a slipcover with a letter in it, and it had a few pieces of tape, and it was four pages, or 3 or 4 pages. And I looked through it a bit, and on the back it's signed Charles Lindbergh. And it said, one of the last quotes was, did you feel when you landed on the surface of the moon, as I did when I landed in Paris, that I would have liked to have had more time to look around? And, I got goosebumps. I'm holding a piece of Americana. I'm holding something that was just breathtaking to me. And I was there watching. I was watching I was 9 years old or 7 years old when, I remember watching on TV, and it was incredible that I'm holding this, and I'm like, this is important. This is really serious, right. And I have to take care of this, and I can't screw this up. So that was a very big deal and a very big responsibility. And then the next thing they handed me was a baggie, and it had in it a letter from the Wright Brothers Foundation. And the Wright brothers, everyone knows, had from Kitty Hawk, and the Wright letter was from the brothers who were still alive in 1969, and the letter essentially said, "Mr. Armstrong, here is a piece of the Wright Flyer wing, this silk canvas, and 28 pieces of the propeller. Please take it to the surface of the moon, and when you come back, give us half back." And I'm holding the other half. And I look in the envelope, and it's, 12, there's still 12 pieces of propeller. And then I learn, we do some more research when I get back after, having my mind blown. We do some more research, and the other half is at the Air and Space Museum at the Smithsonian. And it's in a beautiful frame, and it's as you walk in. On one side is the museum director's kind of affidavit that says this is what it is, and the Wright Flyer material with the propeller in the center. And on the other side of that is Neil Armstrong, his affidavit in his writing, saying, "I took this to the surface of the moon." So you can't get any better provenance on the material we have, and it's the two of the greatest achievements in mankind in one. So this was the first flight, and then this was taken to the moon. It's fantastic. Wow. And these are the kind of artifacts that are in the collection, and also it's so important to get this right, and Heritage is really the right place to have this done. We needed a worldwide platform. There's so much material that there's going to be 3 auctions, and there's going to be millions and millions given away to charity. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, what an honor, and I'm blown away, and I'm blown away in part by your enthusiasm. I slightly missed the spacewalk generation, as I was born in '69, but it's just fabulous, and it's what an honor, and just hearing your voice talk about this is almost the most enthusiastic I've heard you in a long time, and it's exciting. It's exciting. Yeah. It's good. We all need that, and everything you just described is it's fabulous, a perfect fit, and congratulations on all that. And I hesitate to say what a great launch to have the Armstrong collection, but
Yeah.
it does come to mind. That's a terrible pun.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten a lot of those.
Yeah, but I mean, and I can't imagine, you say maybe this is the best collection you'll ever get over at CAG, but I'm as amazing as Armstrong is, there's going to be other amazing ones, and they're all going to have potentially some very, very incredible pieces of artifacts. And until now, like I said, they sort of seem to get orphaned after that first auction sale because people didn't have the way of tying it in. So I really think it's a fantastic idea, and I applaud you for it.
Thank you.
And I wish you guys the best of luck in taking it forward. I can't, certainly we'll be around to watch it and monitor the progress of these auctions. And Heritage will do a fabulous job, I'm sure. So that's fantastic. Good for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You sort of self-interviewed and you stole all my great questions. So, I'm going to thank you for that too.
Right.
And I just wanted to ask one more thing that I think people are curious about, and I'm always curious about since I've never shadowed you at the office, but especially now in this role, as you've moved to the full executive level. But you still go and visit. You still go and visit and look at collections. You did that for me when I at David Lawrence for Coins. You came to a client's house, the Richmond collection, and you took 2 days of your life to go through the collection and make the customer feel very comfortable with the grading of all his collection into NGC holders. So, what is a typical? It wouldn't be right to say a typical day, but what is? How do you divide your roles at NGC?
So we've really grown. We're up to over 50 million artifacts in over 31 years now. So we have over 300 employees worldwide, and most of them are in Sarasota. So I go to work. First thing I do is I sit down and I start grading. Some days I could have bulk gold, I could have walkthroughs, high-end material, and I just still love grading. And I also have 2 guys that sit next to me that I basically are mentoring and trying to get them to a level so I don't have to do this till I'm 70. I have to replicate my efforts. And I have actually a number of guys that I'm teaching, and so that's my number one priority. I have NCS that I have to look at for and evaluate and instruct people what to do in terms of applications to remove dirt and grime, etc. I typically then will walk to the different departments and serendipitously meet people in the hallway and have mini conversations and see what's going on. There's always an incredible artifact that's coming in, like a high value note or a Detective 27 comic book that somebody wants to talk to me about. And then I have meetings to discuss all the moving parts. I have great people surrounding me. Steve Eichenbaum's been with me for 20 years. He's my CEO. He's brilliant, and I would say he's the top executive in the collectibles world, in my opinion. He just is tremendous. He's developed China for us over 10 years and opened all the offices around the world, and we just have a great team. And I'm excited. More excited than I ever have. I'm glad you recognize that, because if I sit there all day and just grade, that's one thing, and it's fine. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I'm not really working because I love coins.
Right.
But now that I'm able to interact with people from these various estates and discuss really big picture ideas with major companies in media, and there's just so much going on. We have some other really big announcements coming up in the next 12 to 18 months that are going to transform the collectibles world, in my opinion. And we don't really create technology. We absorb technology and get in the way of it. And we're excited about those developments. Think about blockchain and how it's applicable to collectibles, and we're right in the middle of it. And you could have a blockchain exchange selling things that we've authenticated and graded all over the world. It's perfect for collectibles. It may not be perfect for every collectible, but it's certainly applicable to many. And we are now converging with the financial markets, as
Right.
many of the items are rising asset classes. If you look at comic books, since we started grading comic books, they've probably gone up in many cases 10 to 50 times in value. So we're excited about getting into new areas. Ancient coins that we're certifying have gone up tremendously and expanded the market worldwide on those. And really what we're trying to do is just basically communicate our integrity and our credibility and make people feel comfortable buying these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I hope you'll come back and join us anytime that you have a new announcement and it's worth talking about. And maybe you can even explain blockchain to me at some point, because everyone asks me when you tell them you're in the coin business, they want to know about, Bitcoin. And I have to tell them they're not related. And I don't understand Bitcoin, but somebody will one day for me.
Okay.
But when you do, whatever big announcements, we can't wait to hear about it. I think what's good for your business is good for the rare coin business, and that's what our readers and listeners want to hear about. We have a great hobby, and NGC has been at the forefront, so we're looking forward to more developments and growth over there. So thanks again for joining us. It's been fun, informative, and anytime, please come back and talk to us.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care, John.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Take care.